Hey everyone, welcome to another 10-minute Q&A, and we have another different backdrop today. This one is sunnier and warmer and very lovely. We've got questions today from a couple of different videos. So I'm just going to crank through them here, but I just want to make a quick comment on the weed video, the weed management video that I did last week. I always worry a little bit about those videos because anytime you bring up sort of controversial topics, and almost anything related to weeds is, but certainly when you start talking about herbicides, you just know there's going to be some blowback. And honestly, I didn't really see any. I mean, people shared some great weeding ideas. People shared their own personal approaches to things. Everybody just, took the information as information and hopefully is just using it to apply it to whatever works best for them. And it was just a really nice discussion. So, you're all fabulous. Thank you all for being such wonderful people. Okay, let's roll into questions here. So Janet asks, do the deer bother your wolf eyes dogwood? I had bought a wolf eyes dogwood 2 years ago. I had to look long and hard for it, and I finally found it. She said, if you had to choose, would you pick your wolf eyes or the Aurelia behind your deck? I really want a white and green variegated ornamental tree. So yeah, the deer did eat the wolf eyes dogwood. I did have to spray it. I mean, it wasn't clearly their first choice, but they definitely ate some of it. So I had to spray it, and then I did have to protect it in winter, and it died on me. I moved it at a really bad time because I did not like where I'd originally planted it. So I moved it really late in fall, and it died. And between that and the deer damage on it, that baby was toast. So unfortunately, I lost it. But I do think wolf eyes is a fabulous. I consider it more of a shrub. But I think it's a fabulous plant. The Aurelia that Janet is talking about is my Aurelia silver umbrella, and I love that tree. It's amazing. The biggest problem is that it's extremely difficult to find, and it wasn't until recently that I learned that apparently it's difficult to grow, although that's never been my problem. It just seems to grow well where I put it, which is on the north side of my fence. Hi, segue. So, I think wolf eyes is the better pick, to be honest. Now, she's in zone 7B, and I don't know a lot about that zone, but I think that check out that dogwood. I think it'd probably be fine. I would recommend the Aurelia, but I just think that it's too hard to find. I don't know of anyone who has it right now, and you buy it grafted, so that complicates the issue and makes for a more expensive plant. Jeanette says, loved this segment of Wine and Weeds, but I was totally distracted by whatever was moving in the plant behind you. So many of you brought this up, and actually I noticed this when I was editing it. So I put that geranium up there because behind that geranium is my YouTube plaque, and that has like a mirror part on it. And I've just been sticking different plants up there to change the backdrop a little bit. And I noticed I was editing. I'm like, what the hell? Is there a cat in there? No, it was me. It was my reflection coming out of the mirror. But for whatever reason, it was very apparent in that video and totally distracting. So I apologize for that. Jeanette also says, I did not mention the grandson method of weeding. She says her 3-year-old garden buddy likes nothing better than to go at the dirt with a trowel. And she says at his age, he knows not to step on the veggies. And she often hears, is this a weed? Train that kid young. You've got a gem right there, Jeanette. Jamie says, I have a large problem in my backyard. A lot of Japanese weed, but Japanese knotweed. It grows so fast. She said she sprayed them. They grew right back. Any recommendations? Yes. Japanese knotweed is one of those. Now, this is about as bad of an invasive species as you can get. It actually is horrifically damaging in England. It made its way over here. It's a pretty plant, and this is what happens all the time. Pretty plants that are invasive becomes huge problems. We have this problem out at our cottage, which is not far from our house, but it's the family cottage that we share where I do some stuff by the pool sometimes. And we have Japanese knotweed there. I actually think it was planted there on purpose by somebody. Anyway, this is one of those things that there is a very specific regimen for how you deal with this. So what you should do is check for your DNR's recommendations for how to deal with it in your area, because it might vary a little bit from how it is managed in ours. The way it works for us, and I've been having a great deal of success with this, I've been working at it for 2 years, is that you wait until it's, I think, 5 feet tall, which doesn't take long at all. You lop it back to the first segment because it kind of looks like bamboo. And then what I've been doing is actually injecting glyphosate inside of there. I actually get a syringe and I inject it right in there. And it's been working very well, but I'm probably never going to be done with this problem. So look for instructions from like your DNR, but it's not one of those things that you can just spray and it works. You have to hit it with glyphosate after cutting it down after a certain part, and then you're actually supposed to hit it again in that same year, go back for a second application. And this is all about making those roots on that plant suffer. Dee wanted to know in the weeding video what brand of Dutch hoe I was using, and that is my Sneeboer Royal Dutch hoe. That's my favorite one. It has little prongs on it. I love that one. It's very good, but I think functionally it behaves as any Dutch hoe would. Every once in a while, the tour videos tend to get some traction again. I think people are looking for garden inspiration, so they end up back at garden tour videos. So there's one garden tour video. I think it's from last summer. It might even be from the summer before. That's getting a lot of traction right now. So there's some new comments popping up on that. And Pat asked, should you mention Verbena Bampton in this video? Where can I buy seeds for this? So this is a super charming type of verbena. I get seeds from this from Select Seeds, but all of a sudden I'm seeing it becoming very popular and I'm seeing it in other places. So do a little Googling around for that, but I know that Select Seeds sells it and that's where I've gotten seeds from before. In fact, I believe they also sell it as a plant. It's a great reseeder. So if you don't want to mess around with seeds, you could buy a plant, let it reseed, and then you can move the seedlings around your garden as they pop up because it's reseeded really well for me. I mean, unless you mulch super heavily, then that won't work. Okay, unfortunately, I didn't get a name on this one, but when I copied and pasted this, but this person says, I'm having a horrible time storing my dahlias. I feel like it's like Goldilocks and Three Bears. It's too cold, they freeze and rot. It's too warm and they rot. She's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And she was wondering about getting a small refrigerator in fall to store them in the fridge. So that is the thing with storing dahlias is they have a pretty specific window they want to be in. I mean, generally it's 45 to 50 degrees is prime range. And mine vary quite a bit. Mine goes at cold corner of my basement, goes from 40 degrees. Actually, it even gets nips down below that every once in a while if I'm not keeping an eye on it, and it'll get up to 55 degrees. So you can stretch that range a little bit, but definitely if they get below freezing, they're done. And if they get too warm for too long of a time, they'll desiccate usually, and they'll just fall apart. If you're rotting either way, my concern would be how much moisture they're being stored in. You might need to check your storage media and make sure that there's not too much moisture in, because they'll desiccate if they're too dry and too warm, but they will rot if they're too wet in any way, shape, or form. I don't know about the fridge idea, to be honest with you. I don't know that is it worth doing that? I also don't know if that will work. There is some airflow when you store them in these, like crates and stuff. There is some air exchange there. I worry a little bit about that situation in a refrigerator kind of scenario. I would say before you go buy something and try something that I'm not sure will work, check your temperature, try to figure out how you can keep a more consistent temperature, and then take a look at how you're storing them, like what storage medium you're using and how moist that is. Because if they're rotting in every scenario, that tells me something's too wet. Imbelia says, last year I cut off, instead of cutting off the foliage of my bulbs, I tied them into little knots so they were lower to the ground and less noticeable as they died back. So this is in reference to last week's Q&A when I talked about somebody asked how you deal with bulbs in raised beds. And I will tell you that I love this suggestion. This is not what you're supposed to do. Everything you read will tell you do not braid your foliage or tie it up or do any of that because that foliage needs to be free and do its thing and then fall apart naturally. And that's, I think, great if you're in a landscape scenario. I would say for something like this, where when you need to get rid of your foliage because you've got other plants coming in there, like your alternative is do what Emilia suggests here, which I've done before myself. And I just take one and tie it in a knot, hold on plane, or you're going to end up cutting off that foliage earlier than it should be. So I think it's better to just tie it in knots. I don't know. I mean, people tell you shouldn't do that. And I think that's probably true. But I think if you're in a situation where, well, I already said it. We're not going to repeat it. You get the point. Cheryl says, can you save bulbs that have not been used or unpacked until the next year in the fridge? No, you can't. So this is the thing with bulbs. They don't have enough energy in them to be stored for multiple years. In most cases, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but in general, you're not going to get good performance out of bulbs, if any performance out of bulbs that aren't less than a year old. So that's why, all the bulb manufacturers, they have to get rid of all their bulbs or they replant them themselves to create next year's stuff. Another question, what topics have you found most useful from your Master Gardener training in your own garden or when working as a volunteer? I've been talking to a lot of people are getting into the Master Gardener program, which I think is great. The way the program is run and managed and everything about it varies significantly from state to state, which was something I didn't realize until I went to an international Master Gardener conference and started talking to Master Gardeners from other states and other areas where I was really shocked as to how their programs work. And there are two parts to the Master Gardener program, just so you know. There is the training and then there is the volunteering. And you are not a Master Gardener volunteer until you do the volunteer part and become a part of that organization, because it's really about training volunteers. It's not just about the training. Now, in our program, in our state, we have a lot of people who take just the training. A lot of times they work for nurseries and their employers have sent them there to take the training. Now, they don't just get to go say, I'm a Master Gardener. That doesn't count for anything, because it's the volunteer part that makes you a Master Gardener, not the training part. But they want to come become better, and we allow that in our group. You can come take the Master Gardener training with no intention of ever joining the organization or volunteering, just to become a better gardener. That's totally okay. Everyone pays the same amount for it. It's no problem. But to get back to the question and answer the question, I think the best thing that the Master Gardener program teaches you is how to find answers. It's not that they give you all the answer, it's how do you find the answers on your own. So like, what sources do you look for? Like right now I'm taking actually an advanced Master Gardener training program on plant diagnostics, and it's all about like, how do you, should have had that before the viburnum thing, right? But how do you find answers for yourself, and what sources do you trust, and how do you source things, and how do you break things down in a scientific and fact-based way? And that's the part that I've found most interesting and most helpful to me in both in my volunteering work and just as a gardener, in terms of how do you, it's problem solving. How do you solve problems, or how do you get answers? Okay, so here's a question that I get asked quite often, which is, how is the Mahonia aquifolium faring in my garden? This person is hoping to give it a try in zone 6 in New England. So a few years ago, Laura from Garden Answer and I had a bet, because our teams, the Oregon State Ducks or University Ducks and the Wisconsin Badgers, were playing against each other in the Rose Bowl. I lost, and the deal was that whoever lost had to plant whatever plant the winner said they had to plant. So she was very nice. She picked Mahonia for me because it's the state plant of Oregon. And I had a very hard time finding one. I found a rather pathetic one in one nursery near us, which was the only one I could find. It's like questionably, it's zone 5 hardy here. But not hardier than that. And what it really likes is acid soil. Now, I know that Laura doesn't have acid soil, so the one that she's got in her yard, which she doesn't talk about very much, but she does have, at least last I knew, is really beautiful and does really well. And I'm certain that plant has adapted over the years to her alkaline soil. But I don't think my soil is as alkaline as hers is, but it's still on the alkaline side of neutral. So I did amend the soil with some soil acidifier. I planted it. Okay, it's still alive. I think it might be getting smaller. It has done really nothing of any merit whatsoever, and the deer have eaten it a bit, which it's this spiny little thing I don't know why they've gone after. So how is it done? I mean, it's alive. Does that count? A little bit. I wouldn't say it's exactly flourishing, but I think that's more of an acidity issue than it is anything else. So my guess is in New England, you probably got plenty of acid soil. I think it'd probably be great in a zone 6 New England garden. Right, that's it for this episode of Q&A from sunny Florida. I have about 45 minutes that I can hang out at the pool before I have to go into a work meeting. But then I'm just going to go enjoy it. So leave your questions for next week here. These can be random questions. These can be, you make it whatever you want. I'm happy to answer. Well, not everything, but test me, see if I answer it. Or videos from the week, whatever floats your boat. And I didn't bring any. Obviously, I'm not by my mailbox, so I have no postcards for this week, but I am doing a postcard project where if you go visit any gardens this year and you want to send a postcard and share your most inspirational thing you saw there or something about it, I'm going to share that with everybody so we can all partake. I did see somebody comment that they are on their way to New Zealand and they're going to send a postcard, and my envy is running rampant because New Zealand might be heaven on earth. It is amazing, and the gardens are amazing, and it's just a lovely place. So, kind of rough time of year to go though. Not exactly coming out of summer there. I digress. Have a great week. We'll see you in next week's Q&A. I will not be in a warm place then. Bye, everybody.